So let's deal with the mountain. And let's don't deal with the mountain from a geographic standpoint. Mountains are big. Sometimes it's impossible for you to get over it, certainly on your own. It's a team effort, and maybe it's just too big anyhow. In the ancient world, there were mountains that were, of course, impossible to climb over without modern equipment. So a mountain represented something too big for you. There's a reason it's not a bump. There's a reason it's not a hill. There's a reason it's a mountain. And when the imagery of mountain comes to the surface in the Bible, beginning from the Old Testament all the way through the New, it's something too big for you to do anything about. It's why Hebrews 12 says you're not on Mount Sinai, you are on Mount Zion. Guess what? It's too big for you to do anything about this. The law can't save you, and neither can you. You're not on that mountain. But you are on Zion, which is the home of Jesus the mediator and all the angels and God the judge and the church of the firstborn. And He loves you and you can't do anything about it. That's why it's a mountain and not a bump. You're not at the First Church of the Bump where you could easily walk off if you want to. You're at a mountain, and mountains are big. And in Old Testament literature, they meant something enormous. Now, one of the failures of our lens in Western literature in the church is that we read and write literally. We don't read and write metaphorically. We don't read and write allegorically. And we struggle with it in the Western world. We struggle. It's why a lot of us struggle with poetry, because poetry doesn't write literally. Poetry writes in hyperbole or allegory or metaphor. And if you don't think metaphorically, the best you can do is think rhythmically. So the roses must be red and the violets must be blue. That doesn't mean anything bigger than roses are red, violets are blue. And have you noticed you walk out and go, violets aren't blue. Violets are purple. And that shows you don't know how to read metaphorically. So if that crossed your mind when I said violets are blue, you go, no, they're not. Congratulations. This next part is for you. The Bible is about understanding big themes, but in ways that us little people can grab them. And to do that, you use big language. And so sometimes you need God. If I were to say to you, some of you need God to part the sea for you this week. You know, surely, that I don't mean you're hoping that God literally separates a body of water this week so you can drive through it. But what you probably know that means is, I need God to do something big this week to take care of what's in front of me because I can't get around it. And so that's understanding that allegory. Mountains are that way. When they drop themselves into the literature of the Bible, is to tell the reader there's something in front of you. You can't go around, you can't go under, you can't go through, you can't go over. So now what are you going to do? And the answer is, because it's a mountain, you're going to do nothing. Because you can't get around it. You can't go over it. Now, you can't think in modern terms. You go, well, I'll just get in an airplane and fly over. Think in their terms. And so it's too big for me. I don't know what to do. And so God's answer to Zerubbabel is, it's a great mountain. It's a big mountain, but it shall become a plain. And so what the language is saying is, you're standing in front of something too big, but I know how to knock it down. I will knock it down. Now, there's a couple reasons mountains exist in the Bible. All right? One reason that the mountain exists in biblical literature is because it's a challenge mountain. God is asking you, are you willing to pick up something bigger than yourself and take on meaning in your existence today? Here's a for instance. Abram, take Isaac, your son, your only son, and climb up that mountain and sacrifice him at the top of that mountain to me. And Abraham gathers his son and the wood and the knife and the fire, and they walk up the mountain. And Isaac says, Dad, we have the wood and the knife and the fire, but where's the sacrifice? And Abram's faith comes out in the middle of his action, and he says, son, don't worry, God shall provide himself a lamb. And when he gets to the top of the mountain, guess what was walking up the other side of the mountain the entire time? A ram whose horns are caught in the thicket. And God wasn't wanting the blood of Isaac. God was wanting the meaning of Abraham. The challenge is not that God wants you to go up the mountain and kill something. The challenge is that God wants you to go up the mountain. And so mountains become that challenge in front of you that God goes, life isn't always easy, but it's okay. I'm pulling rams up the other side. If you can get to the top, I'll meet you there. And that'll get your feet out of bed in the morning and put them on the floor and give you a reason to live and give you a reason to work and give you a reason to survive, because mountains need climbed. Because guess what? We love to climb stuff. We love challenges. That's the human spirit. Tell us we can't go that fast, we work to go that fast. Tell us we can't go that high, we work to get that high. We're seeing it right now in space. You can't land on Mars. We're going to land on Mars. What's next? I don't know. That's the point. It never really ends, because that's us putting a mountain in front of us to go, can we climb it? God shines like a bright light from the top of the mountain, says to Moses, come on up here and I'll give you the commands for my people. And Moses walks up the mountain. At the top, God cuts covenant, because sometimes the mountain is the place where you have to leave the crowd behind to go experience the revelation that only God's going to give you, and He won't give it to you in the camp. He'll only give it to you on the mountain. So sometimes the mountain is the end of a journey you had to make to go find out what you couldn't find out at the bottom of the mountain. And sometimes the mountain is, for those of you who will come after me, let him deny himself and pick up his cross and follow me. Because there might be a piece of you that you need to lay down. And you'll lay it down at the top of this mountain. And the cross that you bear every day will be the reason that you exist. And you'll embrace it while everybody else asks you, how do you do this? How do you make it with this much struggle? And you go, it's what I pick up. And I yoke together with Jesus. And we walk that mountain together. And it isn't too big, because His yoke is easy and His burden is light. And I'm yoked together with an ox that knows how to pull. And then the mountain becomes a molehill.